Evolver-Prologue is a virtual reality journey through the inner rhythms of our human body. This piece is a collaboration between award-winning immersive studio Marshmallow Laser Feast and Edward Pressman and Terrence Malick as executive producers, produced by Atlas V from France and Marshmallow Laser Feast in the UK in a co-production with Orange XR. This panel will allow our speakers to talk about the genesis of their work. The audience will move through an Evolver-Prologue, a virtual space exploring the relationship between the human body and the natural world on an epic scale. Evolver will be distributed by Orange on their XR platform, as well as being tourable to venues worldwide and as a live experience. So right now, I welcome you to the introduction. We'll experience a short trailer. Thank you so much. Enjoy. And I'd like to invite my panelists up to the stage, please. So, since experiencing Evolver-Prologue yesterday and getting to know the team behind it, I can see there's so much passion that has gone into this piece. And I'd like to give you each a moment to introduce yourselves and what it means to be a part of creating this challenging and monumental piece for the growth of XR. Please.
So my name is Antoine Carroll. I'm the co-founder of a company called Atlas V, and also I'm one of the lucky co-producers of Evolver, and also obviously of Prologue to Evolver that we're showing at the market right now. Something really meaningful for me to be part of this is the fact to bridge such different amazing talents, talents from VR like Barney and MLF, and from the cinema like Edward and Terrence Malick, and the music with Johnny Greenwood and all the other people we have part of the project. That's something really exciting.
Sam.
I'm Sam Pressman. I work for Pressman Film, founded by my father, Edward R. Pressman. It's a whole new world to be involved in XR, and I think just seeing the way that Marshmallow Laser Feast and all of the collaborators, as Antoine said, are working to make something that's not just decorative or surface level, but a work of art that combines technology and takes us into a place that maybe we see that we're interconnected with each other and nature. So I'm just super hyped about it.
Well, thank you for being here. Guillaume?
I'm Guillaume Brunet. I'm head of XR content division for Orange. So I'm very excited to be here with you today, and very thankful to have this experience promoted in Cannes. And Orange is betting more and more on XR content, not only VR, but we think that the future is XR, which is thinner devices and mass market audience. And this kind of content that we have is clearly the future.
I absolutely agree with that. And joining us from the UK, from Marshmallow Laser Feast, we have Barney and Nell. And Nell, would you like to give yourself a brief intro?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us from a distance. I'm sorry we can't be there with you today. My name's Nell. I'm the exec producer and exec director of Marshmallow Laser Feast. And likewise, just it's a pleasure to be working in our home industry, if you like, in the way that we feel comfortable, but with such great brains from collaborators outside that field. So from film, from telecoms, and with Atlas 5, who we've known for a long time and haven't quite found a project to collaborate on until this one came to us. So it's it's just a pleasure and exciting for us to be thinking about the kind of epic opportunity that merging film and XR offers us.
And Barnaby.
Hello. So it's a shame I'm not there. I've been getting the pictures, and it's obviously it's Cannes, so it's good vibes. I'm in the cave in London, the empty studio, and the project. I mean, all of our work is just fully embracing collaboration, trying to bring together a real mix of different talents. It's wonderful to work with Elliot Cole on the music, and Johnny Greenwood's been making some music for the piece, and Nathan Sinegaglia, who's been my right-hand man on the animation, and everyone else involved. It's been a full-on team effort, and just great we're just honored to have opportunities to kind of crank the artwork and do these kind of projects that come from quite a clean intention. So we're very chuffed.
Well, we certainly miss you here on site, but thank you so much for bringing your work to us and also to our audience today. So it's been a pretty amazing story of how this collaboration started. Nearly 4 years in the making, and then 4 months ago to really dive into their production to get it ready for the Cannes XR Marché du Film. My first question is about the evolution of the project. Guillaume, can you give me a bit of the backstory about how the vision evolved and how you joined forces to bring this to life?
Okay, so everything started 4 years ago, as you told, but it was a long process to come back to Evolver-Prologue and then the LBE. And I think the major moment was this 2019 projection of Hidden Life 2 years ago, where Orange Studio co-produced the movie. And we were able to meet Terrence Malick at this moment of the presentation of the movie. And we had the information that he was producing a content in VR. So then, connecting the dots about who is taking part of the project, I was able to know Edward Prespan and his son, Sam, and I knew that he was into VR. And then we collecting a team with Marshmallow Laser Fist, Atlas 5, the best producer in VR worldwide, I think. And we assumed that we wanted to do something great. Not only a prologue, but also a LBE. LBE is a location-based entertainment. It's something that bigger than this prologue, even if its prologue is a content by itself, and we do invest a lot in this kind of content. And I was mentioning this before, we think that in the future, this kind of content are going to promote new 5G services for telcos.
Yeah, I think we're really looking at the evolution of communication, which we'll get into shortly, and maybe we'll end on that note, because I think that's really pushing the vision into the whole potential of what's next in this space. I want to take our conversation to Marshmallow Laser Feast. And Eleanor, your team has put together some of the most critically acclaimed VR pieces, both online, but also that have been experienced as location-based VR. Can you talk me through what the full vision of this project is, taking it from Prologue to its potential as a global hybrid experience? What does this look like as an online and live experience for the audience, and what does it look like as a business model for distribution?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to pass over to Barney to talk a little bit about the vision, the creative vision for the project, and then I'm going to cover off all the kind of business model side of stuff.
Can I do the vision bit first?
Go for it.
Okay, so on the first thing is, like, have you ever seen a heart beating? Like, we're all very familiar with our bodies. They're about the most familiar things we have, but there's dimensions to ourselves that we've never explored, and yet sort of science and medical research is designing new and better systems to be able to peer inside the body, and often those image making techniques get siloed in the sort of scientific world, and it's interesting to think about the beauty that gets revealed through MRI scanning and CT scanning. So really this this project is about using science as a way of stepping beyond the limits of our own perception and being able to take something as familiar as our body, scale it up and allow us to experience it in a way that you would experience a forest. If you were to take a walk through a forest, you've got the trees around you, the texture of the soil, you know, it's that kind of scale being in the body of the forest. It's taking that idea, but allowing you to explore your own sort of human ecosystem. And I think just through that process, there's a kind of a beauty that is presented through this kind of scientific image making technique and translating that into virtual reality. So that's kind of the intention.
And maybe maybe quickly before we get to the business models, and while we're looking at the art, I think a really important question too is why VR? And there's some really important ideas that you brought up in this piece, again, from life and death, from looking at the micro scale, also the transcendental, which you'd only get in meditation or maybe at a concert, and these amazing ability of VR to take you to new places and to feel new things. So let's hear about some of the ideas and also why VR to communicate these.
And I think VR is a technology that is kind of hacking perception, so it can trick you into feeling that you're in a different place than you really are. And so in that sense, you know, it really differs from film. Although you can get lost in a film, you're in a room observing the screen in front of you. And so within VR, it's fully immersive. You're taken from your room and put in another place. So then it's interesting to think about phenomenon and experiences that exist beyond the limits of our senses. And I think that's an area that, for me, kind of riffing off Richard Feynman, that a sort of a scientific lens or a scientific understanding of the world always adds a sense of awe and wonder. It never subtracts. And I think part of the power of this perspective shift of the medium is that you can take you out of your skin, out of your body, out of your first person human perspective and occupy these other non-human perspectives, seeing the world through the eyes of a different animal, accelerating or compressing time, exploring your body where your lungs are the size of trees, and you can see that the heart actually in the experience is from real medical data from the Fraunhofer Institute. And so that is actually the kind of knot, the almost like a bait ball, that shape and the way it moves is actually how it moves. And I don't think we could have invented that beauty. If we were to make it up, it wouldn't have looked that beautiful. So for me, that's the whole thing. And VR is unique in that sense that it can take you out and put you in places that we've never visited before. Yeah,
certainly. It's bringing the organic into the digital and the digital making it more organic, which is a really amazing way to have a new perspective. Eleanor, now back to business models. This is, of course, extremely important for lots of creators, individual creators, also teams that we have today. So I'll give the floor to you.
Thanks. Yeah, the really creative stuff now we can talk about. It's interesting, obviously, when you think about how our industry works, or, you know, this kind of industry which is emerging around us. And we often say that Marshmallow Laser Feast is rooted in digital media, or we're media artists in lots of ways. And rather than kind of thinking about a film background and how film is sold or distributed, that doesn't kind of exist in our world, or hasn't necessarily previously. And we always mimicked or were part of this kind of digital art scene much more. And so thinking about how that extrapolates out or becomes a kind of mass market proposition, we started exploring, obviously, kind of releases online in a limited fashion, but we really got the bug when we could really kind of control that visitor or that kind of human experience from the very beginning to the very end of someone seeing your work. Now, some of that was to do with the limitations of technology kind of in the years that we've been producing this kind of work, and others were to do with how we wanted people to experience the work and what was important about how we controlled scent, how we can control touch, as part of these kind of multi-sensory experiences. And this is no different for Evolver, right? We're really interested on how we kind of bring people into a world, how you feel, how you smell, you know, how you control that kind of lived experience. So the story or the embodiment of the world that you're within is truly impactful. And then what we're interested in from a kind of market opportunity is where is the success for this stuff. So if you look at places like Atelier de Lumière and what Team Lab have been up to, I mean, these are kind of obvious examples, but they're, you know, Team Lab's museum in Japan was the most visited museum ever in 2019 or something like that. So there's huge opportunity for digital media to play a role in these kind of new forms of audience experience and ticketed experiences. So we're really interested in that. And we'll continue to kind of explore that with Evolver. But also, you know, as Guillaume was saying, and with 5G, how can we also create exemplar content for telecoms, but for devices, for kind of at-home experiences? And Evolver really seeks to explore both of those markets and the potential within them.
It almost seems like you're inviting the audience to the cinema set. So you really have to have everything ready to go, but for your audience to be there at any moment, which is quite cool to see this translation from traditional to new media, where your audience experiences it right up close and they're there as a part of the story.
Yeah, and totally the future of moving image, right? If moving image doesn't become this and it doesn't become deeper, then what will it become? Because for us, that's the frontier, and that's what's exciting.
Thank you, Eleanor. I want to take us now to Hollywood, since we're talking about set design. So Sam, I'm very interested in your role here. You come from a position of influence in Hollywood, and you're taking an entirely new journey here that's bridging the gap between film and XR. What was your first experience with XR, and what impact did it have on you?
I was at Stanford for undergrad, and I was in a digital art class, and we were playing with early Kinect, the Xbox Kinect technology, but the Ingenue Lens company had given us sort of a breakthrough model, and it was sort of a early volumetric point cloud that looked incredibly abstract, but it just felt super fun to play with that, and at the same time developing my own relationship to the film world and trying to follow and uphold the tradition and legacy of what my father has built with Pressman Film. This opportunity sort of emerged in a very organic way, and it's just continued to evolve from that, you know, that we keep Renee Pinnell, who really was the forerunner of this project, has a company called Kaleidoscope and connects amazing creators in the VR and XR world with funds and grant opportunities. And though he's not on the screen or on the stage, I think it's important to just say how much a visionary he is and what a great figure he is in the space.
I think technology is really catching up with the vision that everyone here has today. So maybe in 5 years when we're back, we'll be able to finally achieve the future vision of what this is all about. And that's why I like how it's Evolver-Prologue. We're seeing something that's going to evolve in ways that we could never even imagine today. I think not only are we crossing new tech with new ideas and new storytelling, but we're also imagining a borderless experience for global distribution, both as a live physical installation and online. Has your role as a producer evolved with this new way of distributing and consuming content?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. You know, in film, everybody's questioning after the pandemic, what's the future of theatrical movie-going experience? And I take the opinion that it's going to still exist, right? It's like theater going back to the Greeks. You know, we're going to want communal experiences and being in the dark and watching a two-dimensional frame, whether that's in our homes or in theaters, and then you get into VR and how that's just distributed through telcos, and the more immersive these headsets get and the more our phones are just enmeshed with the way we perceive reality. I think it's just gonna, the motion picture that Muybridge and Lumiere discovered is just evolving and changing. So it's how we interact with it, and you know, there is no answer. We don't know yet.
Yeah, we're definitely laying the foundation now for what's going to be a very vibrant future. I'm wondering, what's the position of XR2 within the film industry? Obviously, here we're at the Marché du Film, which is known for breaking new boundaries. I mean, cinema was very revolutionary at one point, too. So when we look at XR, how is that perceived in the cinema industry, and what does it mean?
Well, you have these, the Mandalorian ILM digital sets, which are essentially using game engines, whether they're Unity or Unreal, that suddenly you, as Nell was talking about, the production design, the world builder is a whole new ballgame in film. I think there are probably some people who fear that, cameramen who think they'll be obsolete, or, I just think there's enough space for everyone. People are watching more than they ever have. So I think there's a lot of great potential again.
Certainly. We're seeing every day where audiences consuming so much more content, and a lot of it is quite passive. And I think this is quite exciting because it makes people think again. So when you have something that's interactive, that you can experience scale and color and really have a tangible emotion and sense of being somewhere, we're now hyper engaged in these new narratives. I'm very, very excited to see the audience and how they come to this experience as well, and what effect it has on their lives. So finally, although Terrence isn't here today, I know the audience would love to know a bit more about the significance of your relationship with him. And what made you decide that Evolver-Prologue was the next logical step in this journey together?
Well, I was a production assistant on Tree of Life, so my relationship to Terry is through my father, and my father's relationship with Terry goes back to Badlands, Terry's first film and Ed's third film, and Ed happens to be in the audience, and we're lucky to be graced with his presence, so I'd love to have him come up and speak about his relationship to Terry.
Transmission.
So here we get to hear from the man himself. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'd love to hear, this is obviously, you've seen the evolution of lots of different content, lots of new approaches to cinema. What has this new step into XR, what does it mean for you, and why did you choose this piece?
Well, I think first going back to Terry, when we were doing Badlands, we were sort of making the rules up as we went along. The independent cinema was a very early stage, and there were really 6 companies, the major studios, that controlled the whole industry. But the evolution of the film industry, as we dared to break the rules, is something that I think Terry very much enjoys, the kind of idea of mind expansion. And when this subject came up, it was in a similar way of breaking rules. Back then, there was a new future of cinema, and that's where we started.
It sounds like it's safe to say that the best rules are no rules, especially when exploring new mediums. I'd actually like to ask the same question that I just asked your son now, which is, what was your first experience with XR, and what impact did it have on you?
Well, it really came through Sam. I'm a Philistine when it comes to VR, and I think it's been very exciting to learn. I'm not a technologist, and some of the things Sam talks about, I have no clue what he's talking about. But the experience is something that doesn't need much explanation. It's there, and it's exciting, and the potential is even more so. So it's really through that introduction and meeting all the people involved that I saw and discovered for myself what this new world might be.
And finally, I'd love to know if you have any messages for any producers out there today who are just starting, and how they can apply what you have learned over these years to starting a career in something very new and exciting.
Well, it's hard to recommend it, but I think taking risks is something that producing films requires. And not taking rejection as an absolute verdict. What we're seeing here is, as everyone said, in an early stage, and where it leads, being unknown is very exciting.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. I know it takes your producers. Takes our studio, and it takes our technology to be an amazing team and really do. It's not just one. It's definitely the team that makes the best things happen. So I want to go now to Atlas 5 and talk a bit about your role in the project. So it really stands out that everyone here is from different parts of the world. We have France, the UK, the US. So what is the approach you're taking to financing and distributing Evolver-Prologues? Because there's obviously very different approaches to each of these markets, from audience but also to funding.
So I think as a producer, my role evolved depending on the project. There is some project you need to be really hands-on and follow the creative team because it's their first project and we have to mature that together. This project is really specific. Like the UK team which is behind the creation with Barney, they know what they're doing. So basically, of course, we exchange, we discuss, but I'm not required to be so hands-on. So one of my role alongside with Nell and Sam is more on like finding the option to make that profitable and to finance it. And I think that's also why we're happy to showcase that Evolver-Prologue to the market. It's like we're in the middle of the fundraising of the project. We hope to start production in November. We hope to be ready for next year in May. And in order to do that, we need to close the funding. So one of my role will be, I'm not the only one, but representing one part of the world and need to try to find some money, basically. And for that, Evolver is a really great example because there is a lot of possibility. So of course, we have all the European possibility and subsidiaries that we know. Nell and I, we used to play with tax credit in our different country, go to fundraising on the subsidiaries, the CNC, the territorial money, the BFI, and a lot of other possible pocket of money around the world. And I think on that, the US and Europe might be a little bit different on the funding, and I will say a lot of difference into the funding side. And what is good is why not take the best of each place of the world to co-finance the project. Like in Europe, we have this thing of like, they give us money in order to employ people in our territory, and that's part of the European dynamics of financing culture and movies. And of course, we'll take advantage of that, but we also need some private people and private location to come to the project. Right now, we crunch the number, the producer that we are, and we know that we have something that is rentable, something that will make money in every location. Of course, we know it's in our mind because, as you say, Ed, we need to take risk. Of course, we don't really know, but we're really convinced that we have a profitable model. So the idea right now is, of course, play with all the things we already know, subsidiaries, public money, but also try to convince location-based people that all these plays, you speak about Atelier des Lumières, Nell, and Team Lab, but there is a lot of other one. I think Illumination just raised like $100 million a few days ago. These people, they will need content. They will need immersive content. You know, so what we're trying to do is just making a step forward in 2 years and anticipating the fact that they will need our content, and then we'll try to make them involved. Some of them, we hope to bring them as pre-sales, so they might join as co-producer and help us to finance what we need to find right now to enter into production in November. And then after, we're going to tour that around the world and bring license fee, and these people will make ticketing and people will come to this space. Because I also think that theater, radio, television will continue to exist and coexist, but I think we have more and more time for leisure on our life than 15 years ago, so we have more and more time to consume culture. As you say, we watch more, we experience more. So this type of content will be needed, and I hope this one will be a huge success. So basically, it was a long answer for a short question. My role is to just play the producer and try to gather some great people around so we can move to finally finish Evolver for next year.
Yeah, I think only a couple of years ago, people were asking, what are the numbers, what are the stats? But we're actually having access to those now in the last few years. And over the last year itself, we've also seen audience behaviors really change with the pandemic. They want to go out, they want to experience events live in person, they want to experience new content online and connect in new ways. I also think Epic Games, they held a cinema festival in Fortnite, which was the most attended cinema festival ever. So it's the opportunity to combine these new digital spaces for new opportunity. They have raised a $1 billion fund for the metaverse and to continue to create content. As you mentioned, there are a couple $100 million, Manticore Games, Rec Room, to experience stuff in new ways. So for the audience and these new digital behaviors, why now? Why should we invest in this space?
I think because, as you say, people want more and more type of different experience. And I think also that Nell bring that on the beginning, that the experience will be, of course, location-based, multi-user that will tour, but we also want that to be online. You know, I'm sure really soon people might, you know, put their headset all together, connected around the world, and do Evolver together. I'm not saying it's exactly what we'll do the next month, Barney, you will see that all together. But why not have that in mind and say that we can connect people, and maybe also some people in location-based will be connected together with some people at home in the same experience, you know. And I think also we'll all iterate on Evolver because we need to evolve with technology, with what Unreal and the other possible tools. What is the possibility we're given by the tools and technology, and maybe Evolver will evolve. It seems like a bad joke to do, but will evolve to different shapes and form and online model, and maybe we'll do new version with what we can do in a few years and with what the space allow us to do.
And since we're saying Evolver over and over again, which has like revolve inside of it, it's worth noting that we have some amazing musicians who are in reserve who've committed to the project. The title for the project came from RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan. We thought it would be Revolver, and he was like, "Nah, that sounds violent. That sounds, you know, perpetually a cycle that's not going anywhere. It should be Evolver, which feels like it has more love in it." And we have Ammon Tobin, the legendary DJ, and Colin Stetson, an amazing film composer. You know, it's in addition to Johnny Greenwood and Elliot Cole, it's like that was the germ of the project, was to say, how can we think about the life cycle in 6 stages with 6 different musicians, and then find the artist who can transmit and transmute what a life cycle means digitally. And I think with Marshmallow Laserfeast, we genuinely have the perfect partner, because that's their playground. They just love contemplating the transcendental. Like, I could listen to Barney speak for 100 years, and when Barney and Ed and Terry are talking on a call, I just, like, genuinely, the first time I started crying just listening in on the conversation, I was bawling. It's like, I don't know, it was beautiful.
Yeah, certainly. I know I experienced this twice yesterday, because there's so much to experience from the senses. You really get that feeling of life flowing, of color, of breath. Also, I know death, when you look, but I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's a hint of that there as well. But it's also very beautiful. And we talk a bit about revolution, but it can certainly be exciting and a peaceful revolution when we have these new cycles of content. And I think that's something that's really reflected beautifully in this piece. So I want to ask Yam a few questions, actually, because technology is making this possible. Without technology, none of us would be here today. So we went from theater and experimenting with shadows and dance at the very early stages, and then, of course, radio and television, from black and white to color. And in a way, this is bringing color to, what is it, black and white 2D screen. So
yes, there is a concept I would like to insist on, and you mentioned it before, it's very important. It's the metaverse concept. This is what we want to create for Orange, which is a telco, but also a distributor of content. And we want to have this capacity to create new narrative and storytelling beyond something already existing. So yeah, I agree with Sam, I agree with Antoine, that people are going to go back to the theaters, and it's going to be perpetuated. I hope so, because I'm a huge fan of movies. But we have to create also, with technology, new kinds of verse and narratives. And this is why I love this concept of metaverse. I prefer it to spin-off. For example, spin-off, I don't like this concept so much. I like some spin-off for TV shows and so on, such as, for example, Better Call Saul with Breaking Bad. But I prefer to create other narrative, inside a new experience with devices. And I think that the devices and the network is going to be the clue and the key in the next years. So that's why the 5G is playing a big role, because 5G is going to be able to make slider devices. Because today I love VR, but I see it like a first step to something else, which is going to change our lives. The first thing we met in 2007, for example, with the smartphone, it changed our lives. You mentioned it just now. Without smartphone, we can book anything, we can do any screening, above all this year. So we need to find another way to communicate. And I think that the glasses are going to be the key. We, in the future, will be able to have drive calls and Google Maps, for example.
Glasses or implants?
Yeah, I hope glasses before the implants. But we will be able to have that in the future. And when you ask Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook about that, they passed like 30 minutes only talking about that. They don't talk about Facebook business and Apple business, they talk about the future. What is the next step? And this is why I love. And coming back to Orange role, we need to have this kind of content and distribute something more for our subscribers. Because 5G today is like an argument, a slow argument, which is like it's just faster than 4G. Okay, you can download your Netflix movie before the plane faster, it's okay. But it's kind of, we need to find more arguments in order to have more subscribers. And I think that the service is the key, and it will happen. And creating this kind of content with such an amazing team over there is a clue, and we will be seen as pioneers in the next 10 years. I'm positive about that.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll save the what is the metaverse question for another time, and none of us are really quite sure now, but maybe
Sorry, I short the question.
maybe we can talk a bit more about 5G, because I think for a lot of people this is a very like, what is 5G? You touched a bit on like what it means for narratives, enabling new type of content. We also talked about having audiences connect, whether they're remote or at home. Or at a physical location, maybe at Cannes. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about a few of the key points that 5G, the way it will change content that we can't even do perhaps today, but in the next year it's going to revolutionize things.
I think everything is about connecting people, and this is what telecommunication company does, actually do. And I like the way that Antoine talked about the LBE, because we had in 2017 a beautiful experience here, which was Carnet Arena, directed by Inaritu, and with the cinematography of Emmanuel Lubezki, who is cinematographer of Malik and many movies, Terrence Malick. And of course, I think it's about connecting. The topic of Carnet Arena was like that. You were in the body of migrants coming from Mexico and crossing the border to the US, with all the dangers that it represents. And people, after the screening, were literally crying about this kind of experience. And of course you cry in the movie theater, but I think if you experience in a human body, it can be suffering, it can be very emotional. It's something more, even more, and even deeper in terms of creative and what we can do. And every time I watch Evolver, because I watch it a lot, the prologue, I feel like with a lot of emotion. I cry. And sometimes you need to just evacuate the things and feel relaxed. And a lot of feedbacks I had from the Evolver is like, I feel so relaxed now. After 7 minutes, I feel relaxed. And I like this feedback, because you are here to relax. You are here to feel better. If you didn't sleep well, if you have some problem, you can have this kind of experience and feel very better on that. And we definitely, as Orange, want to have this kind of content in the future and to be a platform. And this metaverse helps us to have the metaverse approach, to be not only a distributor, but also a creator of social, and it has to be social, definitely.
Absolutely, and I think 5G it's exactly as you say, it's not just entertainment anymore. Because I think the first time that we created content, it was always about storytelling and connecting people, especially across cultures, across borders, geography and time. Like you can get transported to, 1950s, or you can look ahead in cyberpunk to see the future. And we also get hints of what 5G will contribute in some of these films, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I want to, as we're getting towards the end of the panel, I want to go back. I saw Marshmallow Laser Feast. I saw a couple little movements where you guys wanted to maybe add something, or maybe to Nell. Actually, I think that the way you approach an experience like this, it's not just about putting the headset on, but it's about presenting an entire experience. The moment you walk in and putting yourself back in your body and kind of away from the busy digitalness we see out there, which is, I think, why you might feel so relaxed. So Nell, maybe we'll end on any final thoughts from you, and I'll go through everyone at the panel today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, we often describe it as, well, there's many, industries that we can lean on to kind of say this is the future of this, or this might be the future of that. But ultimately, I think it's like, how do you bring someone into a world and into a story? And we talk about that a lot. You can describe it as something quite dry, like onboarding, but really it's about immersion and bringing people into the world. We would never use, or we often discuss the use of technology at Marshmallow Laser Feast, and we're kind of fans of only use the technology when you absolutely know why you're using it and what it's offering, that experience or that story. And Barney so eloquently talks about why we use VR so much, but really it's not. That kind of bringing someone into that world is as important as using any other technology, film or whatever it might be. You need to establish where you are, why you're there, and ultimately take people on that journey. And the prologue for Evolver is only really scratching the surface of what we hope this world becomes, or how we take you through this story anyway. So we're really excited to kind of explore that world more.
Yeah, I think the last Marshmallow experience it was at Saatchi Gallery, and people were so absorbed in it. And I recognize a lot of elements of what you guys at Marshmallow Laser Feast do and bringing it into this piece. And I'm sure along the way it's transformed a lot from what each of you have brought to the project and your vision for it. And Barnaby, I want to give you an opportunity as well for any final thoughts or anything you want to share with the audience today.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's interesting to think about what happens when you take the headset off. For sure, this technology and the trajectory of 5G, 6G, 10G, 10 years time, contact lenses, implants, all of that is leading to a deeper level of immersion in experiences that are engineered by human beings. So it's interesting to think, for sure there's going to be lots of escapism in that, and that's fine, but I think we're interested in what happens when you take the headset off, and how the experience in virtual reality can sit with you and affect your relationship to reality, your relationship to other human beings, to plants, to the more than human world. And in some ways, I think we talk a lot in the studio about the myth of separation, and how actually sort of perception itself can give you this feeling of being contained within your skin, and you exist sort of inside your body, and you're in relationship to things that are outside. But when you look at the world through the lens of science, this sort of boundary becomes really blurry, and you start to understand that, the air that you breathe is flowing through trees, and the nutrients and everything is, basically everything's made of rivers. And so I think the final point that I guess would be maybe the essence of this area we're exploring is, if you could get in a rubber ring and follow these rivers that flow through the web of life, then you start to blur the boundary between yourself and other organisms, and start to understand the relationships between things. And that maybe somewhere in those journeys is a kind of realization that sort of acting in self-interest means acting in the interest of the planet. And so that's kind of there's some kind of, I guess, there's something in that we're trying to put a pin in, or explore. We're exploring, right? So yeah, we're just privileged really to have opportunities to dive into this stuff. So
It's like taking out a telecom tower in the middle of a conversation, massive impact, and it brings us into our bodies to understand these little things that we don't notice that happen every day, maybe we've lost sight of. It really connects us back to that. So thank you for those insights from the Marshmallow Laser Feast team. And now, I guess, Ed and Sam, are you guys wearing augmented reality glasses today? Did we come unprepared?
I just, are our glasses AR enhanced? This is like my 6th day wearing glasses, and my dad has always said I'd be at least 10 IQ points smarter if I just wore glasses, so
I have the
feeling
SIM card.
like an augmented reality for me.
I have the SIM card for them. Can inject
Perfect.
it in the glasses directly.
Oh Lord, I've been having terrible nightmares about this moment for my entire life.
I'll take the 10 IQ points and wear glasses then. I think that is the vision for AR and assisted by 5G. But for both of you, any final thoughts, I guess, for filmmakers who are going on along this journey as you guys, anything you want to leave them with, especially as you're taking this step from classical forms of cinema into XR? That's a huge leap for a lot of people here. So any advice you'd like to give to our audience?
I kind of just want to keep living in the rivers that Barney was talking about. Yeah, I think what's so enticing about this is that rather than living in so many of the science fiction dystopic futures that we've been reading for the last, 150 years, or as long as you want to say that canon has existed, it's been so nasty and so full of fear. And I think we really do create the future that we collectively think about. So the more that we can have such utopic creators like Terrence Malick, like Barnaby Churchill Steele, like Marshmallow Laser Feast, a better world, really, we can inhabit and dream. So.
Yeah, cyberpunk seems pretty isolated, and that's definitely not the case here today. Antoine, final thoughts for you as well. I mean, this is a big endeavor and obviously massive, massive opportunity for market, but also for the creators here. So any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with us?
I think as a producer on every project you have two phases. The phase where you need to shape and finance the project, which is the phase we're on for at least a few moments. But I'm so impatient to be on phase 2, like entering production, going to this call, well, I can listen to Barney and like Sam, just relax and enjoy, and then think about how to release the project in different locations. So I'm really, really thrilled to be on this second phase. When you see all the talented people around it, it will be really exciting to follow. So that will be my final thoughts. And also to repeat that because we're on this first phase of closing funding, we have also some screening at Orange that can be organized. So if there is some amazing location-based places that want to book the best immersive piece of 2022, come to see us.
Thank you. And yeah, Guillaume, for powering this. Yeah,
two
please.
final toasts. You took me one. So yes, please, if you are able to come by and experience the Evolver at the Pavilion 101, just in the Riviera over there, I will be very pleased with the team to have this kind of screening for everybody who wants to enjoy it. And the second one toast is about the fact that you can discover it even if you are not in Cannes inside our application. And this is the key, because we are a streaming service as well. We have an application called Immersive now, available on iOS, Android, and also Oculus Quest, etc. So if you are able to watch this content inside the platform, you will enjoy it, I'm sure. It's in highlights position as well, of course. So it has to be consumed as well in streaming service, and very massive. And I think for that, the application is very well announced.
Yeah, I think as I've been speaking with XR creators and filmmakers, I think always the first bit of advice is go and try it. And I think also this is a really unique opportunity to try the same content piece across different devices. And there's a lot of learnings to take from that. And also I know I've learned so much today, And thank you so much for our panelists. Really appreciate you guys spending the time to share the work you're doing and creating this together. So I'd like to invite anyone in the audience. The panelists will be here. And I hope you've had an amazing week at CanXR. And thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you.